You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
Before this podcast kicks off, let's talk about goals. The greatest goal is a native tree crowdfunding campaign, leaving a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-host of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree for a brighter future.
Football Fever with News Talk ZB's voice of football, Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with Trees That Count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
Hello, kia ora, welcome into the latest episode of Football Fever. This is your daily World Cup podcast with treesthatcount.co.nz. I'm Jason Pine, Bonnie Jansen alongside as we look back at day 8. What a day yesterday. I'm just absolutely loving this World Cup. You're messaging me every 10 minutes telling me how much you just wish it would be all year round.
Hey, you're messaging me the same thing.
I think you're right. You're right, actually.
Yeah, I think that has to be one of the best days of the tournament, other than the opening night, of course, which was unbelievable, but that was pretty unreal yesterday.
It was 3 excellent games. Can we start in Wellington? The United States won, the Netherlands won. It was a kind of a heavyweight clash that was billed as being, one of the games of the tournament. It certainly lived up to it. I was lucky enough to be there. I'll give you a few thoughts in a minute. What did you think, though, from what you saw watching this one on TV?
It was a tight game, and the USA surprised me in that first half, especially. I don't know, a little bit underwhelming towards the end of the match. They were kind of, in and around the Dutch goal mouth, but overall it was an exciting game, and I think the competition has really stepped up for this USA team.
I think the days of them being more athletic than other teams, sort of physically more imposing, quicker, fitter, stronger, and that being enough, are gone, right? I just thought the Dutch completely refused to be overrun or bullied or whatever, overawed by the whole thing. I thought they bossed the first half, the Dutch. At one stage, it was one of those where the crowd were counting the passes, with the Dutch crowd were counting up to about 20, 25 passes between these Dutch players. They just looked so assured. And when they scored, it wasn't a surprise, and it was totally deserved that they went into a 1-0 lead.
Oh, I love to hear that. And I heard the crowds were amazing down in Wellington, and I heard on Darcy Watergraves on News Talk ZB say that he heard on Twitter some New Zealand people were kind of complaining that the crowd was too loud, which upsets me a little bit because, I just don't think New Zealanders know how to watch a football game.
The crowd was too loud. Who was saying that? Who was saying that?
I know. I don't know if Darcy's just spinning some yarns or not, but yeah, I mean, to hear that, my grandparents were also there at the game, and you were there, but they just loved the crowd and the atmosphere. They thought it was amazing to see, New Zealand host a game like this and people dancing on the concourse and things like that. But in terms of the game itself, the Netherlands were right up there, and it's not going to be smooth sailing. It's not going to be an easy guaranteed run for this United States team. But then at the same time, they know how to perform in these pressure games, and they got the equaliser. That's, I guess, all they needed to survive that game. And so, the US can pull one out when they need.
Yeah, first time they've trailed in a Women's World Cup game since the 2011 quarter-final against Brazil, so they're certainly not used to being behind, but they did take control in the second half. I thought Rose Lavelle coming on, we spoke yesterday about her and maybe how she might start the game. She didn't, and afterwards it was revealed that she doesn't really have 90 minutes in her still, so the best use of her was to come off the bench rather than to start. I thought she made a big difference when she came on. Lindsay Horan scoring that goal shortly after being fouled by her club teammate. There was so many layers of interest in this. She scored in both games now. The US stay unbeaten in 19 successive matches and top of Group E. Same number of points as Netherlands, who trail on goal difference. Again, I just felt so lucky to be there yesterday. The quality of the football and the skill level and the athleticism and just the flow of the football game. I was just captivated. I was gutted when it finished.
Yeah, no, I feel the same. It was amazing football, and it deserved to be a quarter-final, semi-final, or even final, as Vlatko Andonovski, the head coach of the United States, said before the game. But yeah, very, very impressed. And I mean, I'm a Dutchie myself, but I do love the USA team. So it'll be interesting to see how these two teams go, towards the end of the tournament.
Just want to mention Jill Roord, who scored the goal for the Netherlands, just signed for Manchester City, her 22nd goal for the Dutch national team. Oh,
your new favourite player.
Oh my God. I just thought in the first half. For a while, I was just watching her, because you can do that at a game, right? You can watch just one player, and just watching her movement in between the lines, how often she was offering, for a pass from her teammates, always available. The goal she scored, terrific. Yeah, I just thought she was excellent.
What was it like in the crowd with Van der Donk and Haran when they had their little?
Oh, it was so good. It was so good. I was sitting where I was mainly US supporters, but then see you don't really get an idea of the balance of a crowd until goals are scored, and so when the Dutch scored, just this orange explosion, and then when the USA got their equaliser, you then realised how many US fans there actually were inside Wellington Stadium, because, it was an equally loud sound. But yeah, when Haran and Van der Donk came together, there was there was a bit going on. Honestly, there were so many talking points. We could talk about this game for half an hour. So much going on. Huge media contingent there yesterday as well. Just felt like, I'm not saying the World Cup hadn't arrived, but it was the first big game between a couple of real heavyweights, and I just thought it lived up to it,
Yeah, and Vlatko Andonovski, I saw, actually took a little bit of heat after the game for not using too many subs. He only used Rose Lavelle at half time, and I've seen there's been some talk around Lynn Williams, who hasn't featured yet in either game, but she has had a really good NWSL start in America, and she's scored so many goals. So, he's been copping a little bit of heat for not playing her. So it'll be interesting to see how he uses the subs going forward.
Well, they've got to beat Portugal now, or at least avoid defeat against Portugal.
Which is hard. Yeah, that's going to be hard.
Exactly, and we can move on to that, because Portugal kept themselves in the fight with a 2-0 win over Vietnam and Hamilton last night. So basically, they've earned themselves the chance to beat the US and make the round of 16 at the US's expense, because you'd have to think that the Netherlands will have too much for Vietnam. Portugal 2-0 up inside 21 minutes. Telma Encarnação and Kika Nazare, the goal scorers. They could have scored a lot more. They dominated this game, 69% possession, 29 shots to 5. Kika Nazare is the poster girl of Portuguese women's football, only 20. And she's got 7 goals now for Portugal. Incredible. Vietnam are out. Portugal would have to consider themselves a chance against the US. They'll go in as underdogs for sure, but, the US will have to lift again, won't they?
You can't not consider yourself a chance, otherwise, you're throwing it away. So, yeah, and it's in Auckland. I think there'll be a big fan base for both sides. And, yeah, USA are going to have to fight. But if USA don't, I think it'll come down to goal difference. And if USA finish second in the group, which they probably haven't done in a long time, then they have their quarterfinal match in Auckland if they get to that. I'm thinking too far ahead.
No, not at all. No, I like the way that you're thinking about what might happen down the track and how you get to see this team again. It was my first chance yesterday at this World Cup anyway to see them up close, and and the Dutch as well. It was just terrific. Anyway, Portugal, they stay alive. Vietnam, though, are eliminated from their first World Cup with a game to play.
While this podcast takes a halftime break, let's talk about The Greatest Goal, a crowdfunding campaign leaving a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-hosts of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023 by asking fans to donate a native tree. Each native tree costs just $10, and whether you donate one or many, you'll be contributing to amazing restoration projects across Aotearoa. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal. Looks like we're ready to kick off the second half.
The Football Fever Podcast with Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with Trees That Count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
Well, if we thought the excitement was over after those two games, we did not expect what happened in Brisbane last night with close to 50,000 turning up to watch Australia play Nigeria, most of them expecting the Australians to win the game and qualify for the round of 16. Instead, Australia 2, Nigeria 3. You called this the group of death pre-tournament, and I kind of tolerated you and thought, yeah, maybe. But I didn't really buy into that. I must admit, you were right. This is the group of death.
It is, and I think I knew it would be when I saw Nigeria play New Zealand back in April. And they're a good side, and now they're in a really good position. They're probably going to get out of the group, and it's going to come down to Australia, the host nation, or Canada, the Olympic gold medalist. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, Australia third in the group now. This was a bigger upset, I think, than New Zealand losing to the Philippines. I mean, just by virtue of the rankings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Nigeria are 40th in the world. Australia are 10th. New Zealand losing to the Philippines was an upset on those rankings too, but this, nobody expected this. And certainly they didn't when Emily Van Egmond opened the scoring in first half injury time. I just wonder, that this game, the momentum of this game might have just changed before half time when Nigeria got their equaliser basically with the last kick of the first half. Going in at 1-1, it kind of felt like Australia, a bit of air had come out of them where Nigeria were just completely pumped up, and then a couple of quick goals in the second half, and all of a sudden they're 3-1 ahead.
Well, that's how you do it, and we've seen, USA have so many shots on goal, New Zealand have so many shots on goal against the Philippines, and possession and things like that, but Nigeria made the most of their possession, and they made the most of their shots on goal. They had, 6 on target, scored 3 of them, That's a 50% stat, that's incredible, and I think as well, Sam Kerr's been unavailable these first 2 games. And yes, Australia rely on her on the field, and she's obviously an amazing talent. But I think they've also relied on her a little bit in terms of their confidence. I think they've lost a little bit of confidence knowing she's out, and then the other 2 forwards that they lost. So yeah, I don't know. They need to pick up their game and because they've got good players without Sam Kerr.
It's such a good point you make, Bonnie. Honestly, it's such a good point because we all know from playing in teams, it doesn't matter what level. When your best player's not there, your shoulders just drop a little bit, don't they? We haven't got such and such today. It's going to be a lot harder. You're right. She's been such a talisman for this team. She's the captain. She's clearly the best player. She's their main source of goals, which is important. And you're right.
But they've still got depth, and they've still got some unbelievable players that play in the Women's Super League and the NWSL, and they've got goal scorers. So there's no reason they can't do it without her, in my opinion, anyway. But you're right. They seem to have dropped their shoulders a little bit and been like, can we do it without Sam? And they absolutely can. So I hope, I don't really like rooting for Australians in sport, and I definitely won't be tomorrow night in the Bledisloe Cup match against the All Blacks. But I do hope Australia can get out of this group.
I just thought it was weird, though, that when they went to make the subs, instead of bringing on Alex Chidiac, who was an attacking player straight away, they brought on Claire Polkinghorne, who was a centre-back, and sent the other centre-back, Alana Kennedy, up front. It's like, it's just shades of kind of Sunday League social football. Just send the tallest person up front.
Yeah, I mean, and she did score, so maybe, true. Good on them, but also Alana Kennedy probably caused the other 2 goals as well, down the other end. So, and I heard there was some heat as well, for the Australian coach, Tony. He, also didn't probably use his subs wisely, as we just spoke about, and people were wanting Alex Chidiac to start in replacement of Mary Fowler and Sam Kerr, so, yeah, shame she didn't get more minutes. Maybe we would have seen a different scoreline.
Indeed, didn't get on till the 85th minute. Looked pretty good in patches. And, as you say, the results in the book, Alana Kennedy, did come on, moved up front from her centre-back position, scored a goal, but 3-2. Nigeria held on. They now just really need a draw against Ireland to advance. Nigeria. Australia have to beat Canada, really. There is a scenario under which they could draw, but they would need Ireland to do them a massive favour and beat Nigeria by a couple of goals, which doesn't feel likely. So, yeah, it feels like Australia v Canada on Monday night in Melbourne is just this must-win match.
I'm actually going to that Nigeria-Ireland game in Brisbane. And so I'm hoping on the TVs they'll also have, that Australia-Canada game because they play at the same time. So that'll be very exciting to be there and see how they both go.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that.
Football Fever with Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with Trees That Count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
Quick look ahead to today's action. Day 9, 3 more games. Group G, Dunedin, midday. Argentina v South Africa. Both of these teams lost their opening games, so really need to win today to stay alive. Argentina, South Africa, who you got?
Well, South Africa looked really good against Sweden, didn't it? Was Sweden that they put up a good fight.
Yep.
But then Argentina are not a bad side as well, so it's going to be another good battle where there's two kind of evenly, not ranked, but evenly good teams.
Group D has its next bracket of games tonight as well. England, Denmark and Sydney, 8:30. Both 1-0 winners in their first game, so win this evening and you go through. England huffed and puffed against Haiti. Denmark eventually got the job done against China. England favourite?
Yeah, they are, and England, were underwhelming as well against Haiti. So I hope that England step it up and we can see where they're actually at. Because it was an easier game for them, but like I just said, they were underwhelming. So hopefully, they can pick it up and show us what they got.
And in Adelaide, 11 o'clock tonight, China against Haiti, both 1-0 losers in their first games. So a win needed for both to keep their World Cup tournaments alive. All right, another podcast in the book. Now you're jetting off, as you just mentioned, to Australia for 2 or 3 days. So we might let you enjoy that, Bonnie. We'll get you back on the podcast. I'll find a very much inferior replacement for you over the next couple of days.
I'll miss the action. You're going to have to keep me up to date.
Don't worry. Well, yes, as you know, I've got your number because I've been sending you all sorts of World Cup messages across last week or so. Just before we do go today, how are you feeling about New Zealand's chances against Switzerland on Sunday? Because we won't get the chance, you and I, to discuss this, obviously, with you away for a couple of days.
I've talked about this a lot, and everyone's like, well, how can they get out? And all I'm kind of going with is a win and we're in. We can't be thinking about, but if we draw, then we could still get out, because it's most likely, if we draw, I don't think we're getting out in terms of goal difference. So we have to win, but we know it's possible because the Ferns seem to be able to turn it on, and I just hope that they can play out of their skins like they did in against Norway. And they're down in Dunedin in the zoo, or the Sistema lunchbox, as some people call it. And so I hope those Dunners fans get around the Ferns, because they're gonna need every advantage they can get.
Absolutely. Much more to come across the weekend on that one. Enjoy a couple of days in Australia, Bonnie. You're back on the podcast with us in the middle of next week, and we are back with a fresh episode tomorrow morning around about this time as we review today's action and look ahead to what's coming up across the weekend. We'll see you tomorrow.
In this post-match review, let's score the greatest goal by donating a native tree to leave a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-hosts of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree for a brighter future.
Football Fever with Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with Trees That Count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal. For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday, or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.